our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
Fuck the prime time, bitch!
Mom with the new flesh.
The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotapes.
Hello, horror hounds, and welcome to the It Slays podcast. I'm your humble host, Rowan.
I'm a rusty nail Mike.
And last but not least, it's Colton.
And we are back for our last Pride episode of the month. And we decided to cut the dead weight around here, and we're jealous. Apparently, mathcore is cool now or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's another sausage party or sausage fest. What do we call it around these parts?
The boys.
The boys. That's right. I think maybe the most appropriate for this film. Clive Barker would appreciate that the boys came out for this one. So, yeah, hopefully everyone has been enjoying their month. I guess when you listen to this, it's pretty much going to be the end of Pride Month. But that doesn't mean you can't celebrate every month like it's Pride Month. And I did promise, to do a little something for you guys this episode. So I thought I would start off with something I don't think we've ever done for Pride, which is recommend Pride horror books, specifically about queer horror, all nonfiction, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Nothing, no fiction in this. Because, as much as I know myself, I love to watch horror. I also love to read about horror, the themes and how it's made and all that kind of stuff. So I thought we would just take, like a minute or two and kind of suggest some books that are out, maybe one or two that are coming out. So the first one, I didn't have the author. It's a bunch of edited by people because it's actually a new textbook coming out this year, which you will find a lot of the queer horror writing is academic. But it is called New Queer Horror Film and Television. And I will say I saw the cover for the pre-order on Amazon, and it's magnificent. It's a mock of, what's that movie called? Call Me By Your Name. But instead of the two guys, it's Jesse and Freddy from Nightmare on Elm Street 2. In that pose. But yeah, it's basically a book about horror in film and television, a bunch of different essays approaching a bunch of different topics about it. I've already added it to my list of books to pick up when it comes out. I think it comes out later on this year because I'm sure it's for some sort of course, and we all know how university is. They love to make you buy those new editions of books whenever they can.
It's a racket.
Yeah. Second one is actually, if you go to St. John's Chapters, staff picked by Mike, because I got conned into paying $50 for it. And that is It Came From the Closet, edited by Joe Velaz, is that his last name? I don't know.
It's a row pronunciation, so yeah.
Yeah. So this is another one, obviously just about queer horror. A lot of great essays in it. I think I've read the introduction on it so far. I haven't had time to dig into it yet, but it is on my reading pile. That is just forever and forever growing. The next book is by Heather Petricali, and it is Queer for Fear, Horror Film and the Queer Spectre, which is a book coming out. Obviously, I'm not just going to keep saying this is about queer horror. This is all about queer horror. So, and then obviously I can't leave a list without suggesting House of Psychotic Women by Kiera Janis. Is that Mike's already shaking his head?
I'm just laughing at you, that's all.
So I should have got Mike to say all these authors' names. He knows them. But
absolutely, you should have just shot him the list so he could have done it justice. But here we are.
Here we are. I enjoy this a lot more.
Just chaotic mess. But
that's who you are.
Yeah, exactly. But this one, I've actually read a couple essays out of this one. I remember when I first got it as a present, it was kind of hard because, there was a big essay on Let's Scare Jessica to Death, and at the time I hadn't seen it. And then luckily Mike picked it, so then I could then read the article on it. But I would say this is probably one of the more famous ones. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the author worked with Severin, and they put out a box set of movies. So there's actually like a Blu-ray box set of movies that are,
which are also streaming on Shudder.
Yeah, they're all on Shudder, and they're all like very obscure titles.
Mm-hmm.
And then last on the list, because I always like to help out with shameless promotion, and there's no reason that this shouldn't be already pre-ordered for everybody. But that's Corpses, Fools, and Monsters by Willow, which is coming out later on this year. And the pre-order's cheap. It's like $20, I think.
Nice.
So
yeah, and it's got a really nice cover too.
Yeah, it's got a gorgeous cover. And it's her and Caden Gardner is the other co-author. And so that's dealing with trans stuff in horror films and just essays and reflections. So make sure that you check that out. And that's the list. So hopefully support those books, even fiction books. There's always lots of great queer horror fiction books out there to supplement your queer horror watching all year. But let's get into what have we been consuming, what have we been watching, what have we been listening to, what have we been reading. We'll start with you, Colton.
This is such a hard transition. You throw it to me to talk about like fucking Transformers or something. This is just awful. Oh my. We were talking about ahead on the show that essentially Rowan and I have watched a lot of the same things over the last couple of weeks. So the first thing I went out to check out was the new Transformers movie, Transformers Rise of the Beasts. And it was surprisingly all right. For nostalgia's sake, it was fun seeing the Maximals from Beast Wars on screen. And I thought the leads, Anthony Ramos and Dominique Fishback, never phoned in their performances, which is refreshing for the Transformers franchise, which I think most people on screen are just there to collect a paycheck. But yeah, I thought like their performances really helped elevate the material, whatever material that was there to be found. A lot of the action at this point with the 7th or 8th entry in the franchise feels very tired, and the writing is certainly not its strong suit. But it was probably one of the better entries in the Transformers franchise, and the moment at which it chooses to kind of smash the credits was a bit of a wild cliffhanger that I didn't really see coming, and I was like, all right, we're going there. What do you think, Rowan?
I had posted on my social media. I saw this with my mother. We went to the Wednesday fan event because my mother is apparently a huge fan of these movies. I wasn't aware. But
I love that for her though. That's awesome.
She was like, I've seen them all, and I was like, I have never seen any of these, or I've seen like the first one maybe in Bumblebee. And she's like, no, I've seen them all. I'm ready. Let's go. So I was like, all right. So we went D-box for it. So we had to get the shaking chairs, which was hilarious because it was me, mom, and my stepdad, and she was telling me how my stepdad doesn't really like the D-box. So I spent most of the time just looking over at him, trying to eat and drink while shaking continuously. Which was very amazing. My mother enjoyed pointing out trying to find other people over the age of 30 that were with their mothers, which there was actually quite a few, and some mothers there that weren't excited to be there. I had a good time. For the movie, it was great. I got a poster that was fantastic. It was a good-looking poster.
Okay.
But Mom loved the movie. As someone that doesn't really like these movies, that's why I didn't watch any of them. I actually enjoyed this a lot. I liked the soundtrack. It was an awesome, 90s hip-hop soundtrack. Pete Davidson didn't annoy the shit out of me in this.
Yeah, he was actually surprisingly pretty good in this, yeah.
Yeah, this was I just thought this was kind of a good romp. Kind of like you said, Colton, my Transformers is Beast Wars. That's the one I remember watching. So this had some good memories attached into it. My only real complaint was that they do a needle drop of Biggie Hypnotized, which my dad, who is like, you name any song, he'll tell you what year it came out. He was very upset because that song didn't come out till 1996. And and the movie was set in 1994, and all the other music was correct except for that one.
What a blunder.
Yeah, it was a big point of contention in the car. So
I was upset that Rat Trap wasn't in the movie, or, you know, the purple T-Rex Megatron or Dinobot. You know, they missed some key figures from the Beast Wars series.
I kind of wondered if they'll bring them in if they're gonna like continue on.
Yeah. The next thing I checked out, you also saw, which was The Flash, which I think you absolutely hated, right?
I did. I absolutely did.
I think it has definitely some of the worst visual effects I've ever seen in a blockbuster film. There are moments in this movie that rival the notorious CGI of, you know, when the Scorpion King comes out of his tomb in The Mummy Returns, you know, that like iconic little gif of the really shitty CGI Dwayne The Rock Johnson coming out. It literally rivals that. And for this movie to be released 20 years later with probably like 3 to 4 times the budget, it's basically downright embarrassing to have something that looks like that. But once I got over how bad the first hour of this movie was, which it is truly atrocious, it's actually like so bad that it's kind of fun to watch and just like laugh at the entire time. I sort of settled into the madness of it all and actually wound up enjoying myself a little bit. I actually do think Ezra Miller, as problematic as they are, and honestly, like, you know, literally a criminal, did give a good performance in the movie, and a lot of the stuff that the movie kind of throws your way into third act almost felt disrespectful to the DC universe, which I don't think that was the movie's intention, but for somebody who's had to sit through basically a decade of shit watching all those movies to kind of keep up with it all, I was completely on board with it. So yeah, realistically, it's probably as bad as what everybody's saying it is, but I had a fun time laughing along with it, and oftentimes laughing at it. And if you go see it, you know, you'll be seeing a lot of those bootleg GIFs all over Twitter. You know, like there's one of Barry Allen putting a scary CGI baby in a microwave that is just so unhinged, and it's actually from the movie. There's loads of weird shit in this movie that, yeah, I kind of enjoyed it overall. It's probably not good, but I had a fun time watching it. Yeah, Rowan, what do you think of it overall?
I mean, like I said, I pretty much thought it was dog shit, but I did appreciate, you know, there was a lot of, the things I did like was there was a lot of Easter eggs. There was a lot of fan love. If you're a fan of Tim Burton, Batman, obviously, you know, just from the trailers, we know Michael Keaton's in this. And to me, I thought it was kind of sad that I felt the movie just kind of really wanted Michael Keaton to carry them the entire way. And it was like this nostalgia for what are far better DC movies and Batman and 89 and Batman Returns and just all these kind of like Easter eggs from those movies.
Yeah, I think they were trying to distract from the Ezra Miller of it all, but then you have literally 2 Ezra Millers in this movie. It's like double the Ezra that is just, you know, you can't ignore it, right? It's literally all over the screen.
I did really enjoy the baby in the microwave. I thought that was super funny. I was a little bit sad because I was like, good Easter egg, guys, wrong superheroes, but that's okay. That happened with Superman and Batman, where the baby was put in the microwave, but that's okay. Yeah, I mean, I've kind of voiced my opinion publicly on this, that Henry's my boy. They disrespected Henry. No Henry Superman in this. And,
no, like blink and you make it, just literally like archival footage, you know?
So I wasn't having any of it.
At least they didn't put an AI Henry in.
Yeah, lastly in theaters, I don't think you saw, because you don't like animated movies for the most part. I went out to see the new Pixar movie, Elemental, and also I wound up enjoying it. It's just a bunch of these movies that I think everyone's kind of like critically mixed on or like panning to a certain degree. I've actually been enjoying them. I do think the idea of adding human characteristics to the 4 elements is a pretty tired idea, and a lot of those recent more Pixar movies are like, what if we made animals like people, or what if we made emotions like people? Now we have the elements like people, and you know, it's done to death at this point, and the art style conveying such left much to be desired. It wasn't very good, especially in light of things like Spider-Verse or even like Puss in Boots or something that are like so with their animation. This was pretty lame. But I'd be lying if I'd said that the movie didn't win me over by the end. I think it's probably Pixar's first stab that I can recall of like doing a true romantic comedy. And considering the protagonist is a single young adult with big dreams and daddy issues, I very much related to them. So it's not top tier Pixar, but I enjoyed it more than Lightyear and Soul. So if you're a single loser like me, you can go check it out. You might enjoy it. Really quick, I guess, before I wrap it up, I also watched the first 2 episodes of Black Mirror Season 6. I may or may not have pirated them, considering I don't subscribe to Netflix anymore because they burned me so bad. But the first episode, Joan is Awful, has a very fun conceit, and it serves as kind of like a meta commentary on Netflix itself and winds up getting a little too zany at moments for me. I don't know if you felt the same way, Rowan, but it was still worth recommending, I found. What do you think of that first one?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty accurate description. I really enjoyed Joan is Awful. I don't know if it was... I'll be interested to revisit the episode because I don't know if it was the excitement that I was watching Black Mirror or...
Yeah.
But for a first episode, like, I thought it was pretty strong. I was laughing the whole time just at the cameos and everything.
Yeah, lots of good cameos in that first episode for sure. And the second episode, Lock Henry, I thought that was just an excellent episode overall. It has a strong kind of horror, analog horror vibe to it, and, you know, also going through a lot of found footage. And it serves as a pretty strong critique of the modern true crime craze, and how that genre oftentimes reopens old wounds and profits off of others' pain. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a very strong episode. A lot of the twists and turns, they're the type of thing where you can kind of see coming or you've seen in other media, but I just thought it was really well executed. And I can't wait to continue watching more of the season. What did you think of the last few episodes? Because you've seen like 2 or 3 of them now, haven't you? Like, more than this?
I've seen pretty much all of them, and I'm halfway done the last episode now.
Oh, geez. Okay. All right.
But yeah, Lock Henry, I thought was one of the strongest of the season. Same as you said, like, it was just like kind of this great horror, like analog horror film for...
It didn't feel Black Mirror at all. It just felt
not at all. It kind of gave me like Archive 81 vibes just with the aesthetic. But yeah, I just really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, you might as well go into what else you've been watching, Rowan, because that's it for me, so go on.
I'll start by just finishing off. So I watched the 3rd episode of Black Mirror called Beyond the Sea. I feel like this was kind of the big one. They promoted, this starred Aaron Paul and Josh Hart in it. And this one, I rated this equally to Lock Henry. I thought this was actually one of the stronger Black Mirror episodes in totality. Obviously, when you get 2 big guys like that, this episode clocks in at almost an hour and a half.
Oh,
so it's like a full-out movie, but this is a little more Black Mirror-ish than Lock Henry. I will say, having watched all this, you can definitely tell that the creative team was just influenced by kind of this flux of horror going on right now, because almost every one of these episodes is some sort of horror motif.
That's cool, though. Yeah, I like seeing like the blending of sci-fi and horror, especially in something like Black Mirror, right, where it's so bleak to begin with. Yeah.
And then I watched Maisie Day was the next episode. I can't think of her name, but it's the actor that plays Childish Gambino's girlfriend in Atlanta, and I can't think of her name. But
is it Zazie Beetz?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
So this stars her. This one I think my least favorite of the season. This one is like a straight up horror. This is just a horror episode. It's also pretty short. It's only 40 minutes. I did enjoy. There's a lot of practical effects in it. I'm not really going to say what they are, just so I don't spoil it for people, because what this is about is kind of the twist of the episode.
Okay.
So, and then I'm only about halfway through. It's called Demon 79, and I'm enjoying it so far. It's shot like a Grindhouse movie with the same kind of filter effect as like Planet Terror and Death Proof, and it's pretty interesting. It's the general theme. It's just about racism in the UK, like in the 70s and 80s, and like the rise of skinheads and the punk movement, and just how it affects like minorities that were living in the UK. So I haven't finished yet, but I've liked it so far. And then I'll mention, I did get a chance to watch Influencer, which was a Shudder exclusive that came on. And I always say that, you never know if it's actually a Shudder exclusive or they just bought it like a year later. And this was good. This was like way better than I thought. I watched this with a friend that I was visiting in Newfoundland. And we just kind of always, whenever I go there, we pick a something on Shudder to watch. And he was like, I kind of had this on my list. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I've seen it like pop up, people watching it. And we kind of just expected it to be like some run-of-the-mill shitty thing. And I was actually like really impressed. It's kind of it would be very fitting in a box set of House of Psychotic Women. But it's basically all about like deep fake technology and social influencers and just someone that is preying on those people. And the music is all I thought about was Mike. I was like, Mike would love the music. It's all just kind of like house EDM. Okay. It's got vibes because they shot it in like Italy and Greece, and it was really well done. There's some cool twists and turns. Like I couldn't really predict what was gonna happen. So it's kind of a cool little like whodunit. And then honestly, I did a few rewatched Jurassic Park. Celebrate the 30th anniversary. Fantastic as always. Yeah, Colton rocking the Jurassic Park shirt. Yeah, I mean, it's always a fantastic movie. And then at work, I actually rewatched the original Alien movie. Because I work with a guy in the summer that, like, he goes to university and then in the summer works at my work. And he was listing me all the movies he's never seen. He's a Letterboxd guy. And he's just starting, I think, to get into it and get into film.
I was going to say, clearly
general.
He's not a very good one.
So he started naming off this list of like wild stuff. Like, I've never seen any Alien or Predator movies. I've never seen any Terminator movies. I've never seen any Star Wars movies. Like it was all this stuff. Wow. Like nothing that's like pre-2010, like, has he seen? And he was just like, yeah, I don't watch, like, franchises, anything like that. So I was like, all right, this summer, we're gonna, when we're on break, we're gonna go into the day room with the big screen, all the lights are off, and we're gonna, like, sit down and watch these movies. So we watched the first Alien, and I'm happy to report he loved it. So
nice.
Converting another one. And then also, when this comes out, it should be out by then. Me and Jill watched The Ladies of the House for our Pride pick for Stream Screams, which was fantastic. Fantastic. This is 2 in a row now. Oh my God. Of movies that I'm like, maybe we shouldn't have picked these because they were that good.
Wow.
This was super interesting. It was, Jill did some research on it. It was actually a crowd-funded movie. I don't know if you guys are aware of a film that came out a couple years ago called Little Sister. It kind of has like an iconic cover of like an animated girl with purple hair. I believe Melody Sisk is the producer, but she also wrote it. Anyway, she's an actress in this film. I know Willow is a big fan of that Little Sister film. And she helped make this. Belladonna, the famous porn star, was also in this. And yeah, it was just fantastic. It's a giant homage to Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Grindhouse films. It's silly, it's gory. There's like some actual real things being discussed, but they're able to balance it with this like silly tone. And just in general, it's about lesbian stripper cannibals that live as a family unit and murder men, and just how that goes. And they eat men. They're cannibals. So
I love it.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Me and Jill, when we picked it, were confident we picked a horseshit movie, and then we both ended up really loving it. If you're into like rockabilly music and that kind of style,
nice.
it's very much in that all the women in it are kind of like 50s pinup style, and it's got some heavy Rob Zombie vibes also. But yeah, that's all I'll talk about. I won't talk about my terrible theater experience watching The Boogeyman for a second time, and my hatred for 12-year-old boys just intensifying. But Mike, how about you? What have you been up to?
Oh my god, y'all were like extremely busy, and I was like completely not in the world the last couple weeks.
What's new with the housewives, Mike?
Well, okay. I have to make an announcement. I canceled my reality TV streaming service.
Oh
my god!
And it's done as of like 4 or 5 days ago. So I will not be rewatching all the Housewives anymore. Now I'm just rewatching all the old Drag Races. So
Oh, there you go.
and the new ones, and everything. Other than just kind of like rewatching random old crap, like just random TV episodes, because that's kind of where my headspace has been, and like a lot of Twitch. I did watch the first episode of the reboot of one of the like key cartoons from my younger years, Clone High, which I was very excited about. And that was interesting. I'm still not sure how I feel about it. I'm glad that there's new episodes back, but there's like some weird, I mean, obviously it's been like probably almost 20 years, I feel like, or maybe even more since it was on the air, and there's different things in it, and there's changes, but so far I'm looking forward to watching the rest of it.
Me and Auxiliary are watching that also. We're big Clone High people.
Yeah, I just, like, that is one of the like dream casts like of like voice actors. And other than that, really all I watched was rewatched Rebel Without a Cause in 4K, because again,
very nice.
Key title from my young years. James Dean is everything.
I've never seen that.
Oh my god,
Neither
it's like an absolute like just stone cold classic. Like, you can't go wrong. It's like the movie that, like, when they're kind of like riffing or homaging or like parodying like 50s movies, it's always that. Like, that's kind of like the seed of it. And it's wonderful. Technicolor, James Dean, Natalie Wood, like Sal Mineo, the cast is insane. It looks amazing. There's so many scenes from it that have been like riffed on in pop culture, so you kind of watch it and go, oh yeah, I've seen like bits and pieces of this already like 100 times. And also saw all I did essentially for the last 2 weeks was watch stuff I've seen before. I literally haven't watched anything new, because I also watched the absolutely insane Criterion 4K of The Virgin Suicides, which is another of my favorite movies from like 20 years ago. Oh my god. And it was like a revelation. Like, it looked insane. A lot of the colors were like corrected to what they're supposed to be. So the like old 20-year-old Paramount DVD that I've had for years was like, didn't even look like what it was supposed to look like. So love that. It was kind of like watching it again for the first time. And that's just like such an experience. Like, Sofia Coppola's like first 3 movies are just literally 100%. So
such a good soundtrack, that was fun too.
Oh my god, this soundtrack is insane. Like, the score that Air does is like iconic, legendary. I used to have the CD of it, but like the pop songs and like rock songs and stuff that they use, like that all the kids listen to and stuff in the movie, it's just like, oh my god, like perfection. My favorite needle drop in a movie, I think, is like Josh Hartnett like strutting down the hall while Heart's Magic Man plays. That's just like one of my favorite moments in like film history. So that's really all I've been doing, like I said, other than watching kind of random crap and, keeping my head down in the sand. I'm boring. I haven't gotten to see a movie in theaters now in months, so soon. It's summer.
Barbie? You gonna go see Barbie, Mike, in theaters?
Of course.
Got to.
Obviously.
You gotta do the double feature, Barbie and Oppenheimer.
I'll be doing that double feature.
So will
100%.
I. I'm pumped for it.
I can only imagine how mind-numbing Oppenheimer is going to be, especially in contrast to Barbie.
That's why you have to go see Oppenheimer first, and then when you're all depressed and feeling down, you go see Barbie.
The palate cleanser, yes.
That's right.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So I guess I'm not throwing it to anybody, throwing it to myself, I guess.
Yeah, come on, tell us why you chose Hellraiser.
So yeah, last Pride episode of the month. I knew I had to pick a good one. This always makes the short list every year. You know, if you listen to our very first episode on my list of favorite horror movies, Hellraiser from 1987 was on it. I have vivid memories of seeing this with my mother. She was the one that showed it to me. My mom in the 90s, from what I can remember, was really living her best kind of like gothic witch lifestyle. I remember there was a lot of like weird, she was really into like weird ornaments that were like dragons and wizards and things like that. There's a lot of like stars and moons and suns, like as
sounds like somebody else I know.
Yeah. So, this movie's always kind of, been with me. I've owned this in any form that you can own it in. And I thought it was only right. I don't think we've really, other than the remake, I don't think we've ever touched, I guess Candyman for Clive Barker. But there's like so much more to explore, in the Clive Barker world. And, for Pride, I just thought, is there really any more iconic, like, queer author than Clive Barker in the horror realm? Like, probably not. So, that's why I picked it. So let's get into the trailer, and then we'll be back with the synopsis and our first experiences.
Somewhere beyond the light and the dark, beyond our secret desires and deepest fears, lies the door beyond all our limits.
We have such sights to show you.
Hellraiser, there are no limits. Rated R.
Hellraiser was written and directed by Clive Barker, and the story is as follows. After tinkering with a strange box he found abroad, sexual deviant Frank inadvertently opens a portal to hell, unleashing gruesome beings known as the Cenobites, who just as quickly as they appear, tear him apart. Sometime later, Frank's brother, Larry, and his wife, Julia, move into Frank's old house and accidentally bring what is left of Frank back to life. Frank then convinces Julia, his one-time lover, to lure men back to the house so he can use their blood to reconstruct himself.
So, our first experiences, is this our first time seeing it? Or are you guys like me and just a huge Clive Barker fan? We will start with you, Mike. I feel like I always think I'm starting with Colton for the first time ever, and it's always, always throw it to Colton. So we'll start with you, Mike.
And then he calls you out for it.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I have seen this movie like dozens of times, probably. I will never forget it for the rest of my life. Okay, there are definitely a lot of movies that I vividly remember my first time, but for the sheer amount of movies I've watched in my life, it's definitely like a small percentage, and this is one of them. I remember it was when I was like probably 12 or 13 years old, and I was staying at my cousin's house, and they live out on like kind of like a cliff over a lake. But it's like this little small house, and they were all gone out doing something, so I was left home alone for the day. So I walked down the street, and at the gas station, of course, because this is around the bay, as we call it in Newfoundland. I went down to the gas station, and that's where they'd have like a wall of movies you could rent, right, for like $2 or whatever. And Hellraiser was there, and I'd never seen it before, and I obviously loved horror movies, so I rented it and went back to my cousin's house and watched it, and got the shit scared out of me because I was in their fucking house by myself. And yeah, that was a traumatizing experience that I then went on to repeat multiple times over the years because I loved it. I've owned it on every, I had a fucking VHS I found like at some store that was going out of business and everything. I wish I still had it and hadn't thrown it out, but anyway, what are you gonna do? What about you, Ro?
I mean, I already said my first experience with it, I think, is, I've seen this with Mom a few tons of times. I won't waste any time. I'll shoot it right to Colton, and then we can get into it.
I first saw this movie, or I guess experienced it to some degree, in utero, apparently. Apparently, Hellraiser 1 and 2 were like my mom's favorite horror movies.
Wow.
For whatever reason. And then when she was pregnant with me, apparently I was kicking and screaming so bad, I guess inside, while she was watching one of the Hellraiser movies, that she decided to stop watching horror movies when she was pregnant with me. So that's the first time, I guess.
This is like this is
your
blowing my
Joker
mind.
origin
This
story.
is blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, apparently she was a big fan of Pinhead back in the day. I don't know. It's weird for my mom, but that was the case. And yeah, I've watched it since then. Probably not nearly as much as you guys. This was probably my third time, I would say, seeing the original Hellraiser. And yeah, I guess more to come.
Well, let's get into the meat and potatoes of things. We're going to start with our favorite scene and or kill. We will start with you this time, Colton.
So this is tough to find a favorite scene in this movie for me. And mostly just because I find the movie a bit of a vibe. And in terms of substance, I'm not sure if there's too much more for me other than it just being a vibe. But I think when I was watching it this time, my favorite moment was when Kirsty winds up in the hospital and opens up a passageway. And then she goes inside of it, and this big, creepy, gross dude is in there and starts chasing her. And it's very obviously like a man in a large prosthetic. You could almost see like his black pants running
the legs,
yeah, after her. And I don't know, I found that like so goofy, but also kind of a little bit horrifying. And that it was just such a long hallway to run out of. I really enjoyed that moment. Like, it was the type of thing where it kind of broke free from kind of the, luring a man back to the house and devouring him and, kind of, the rampant, just horny energy that this movie has for most of it. This was a little bit different where I was like, oh, we're like almost in like a Nightmare on Elm Street movie here for a second. It was it was very, it kind of woke me up, so to speak. So yeah, that was probably my favorite, scene in the movie when I was watching it this time. What about you, Rowan?
So I had the exact same scene. That
no way, really?
Yeah, I
okay.
love that scene.
Yeah.
I feel this is where it really thrives in like this gothic horror aesthetic. I love just kind of I don't even want to say reveal, because we have already seen like little bits and parts, the Cenobites, but this is where we really get them like in full glory. And obviously I love the introduction to it. And to me, I like this scene almost because of what we're going to get as we go on in the series, where this is going to get like sillier and sillier. And like pretty much after 2, we start getting into like ridiculous kills. Like this is Nightmare on Elm Street or something. So to me, it's just this first one. Like, I love, like you said, even though it's kind of a little goofy, it's got that like the great practical effect feel to it, but it's still like is trying to be serious and is still somewhat haunting. I love like stuff like the light reflections on the wall when she's like seeing that it's kind of like see-through. That gives me like kind of almost like Beetlejuice vibes when the light's shining through the brick. But yeah, that's also my favorite scene. What about you, Mike?
I mean, I'm not gonna say that, but that was the scene I think that when I was watching it when I was a kid that pushed me over the edge and absolutely terrified me. And because in that house, like their house was really like rectangular and like kind of long. And there was one long hallway in it that it really reminded me of that. And I kept like looking down at the hallway. And I'm like just waiting for this giant thing to come out. So I'm glad everybody enjoyed that scene because it's so good. And it does have like a vague Nightmare on Elm Street vibe to it. Mine is it's almost like stupid. Because it's not like a kill or anything, but it's the shots where Julia is upstairs while they're moving in and, like having her like fantasies, memories, flashbacks of like her affair with Frank and like, getting fucked by him while, they're pulling the mattress and you see him like with the thrusts are happening and like his hand is kind of like thrusting and then, finally like climaxes and like tears his hand open. And I just thought that was such a cool, like for somebody who had, not directed a movie before, I just was like, that's a really cool way to do it. And it's, there's so much like intermingling of like sex with blood and violence in this. And I just thought that was like such a neat little moment in the movie that is, to me, very effective and not as like kind of over the top gory and shit as like it will become. So I appreciate that. it's not subtle, but subtler.
Yeah.
Cinematic parallel there. Yeah, I really like that. It's
Yeah, I appreciated that scene as well. Just the mixture of like the pain and pleasure, and obviously done through the cross cutting and the penetrative power of the nail and all that stuff. Like, there's when I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is cleverly done for sure. It's probably the best example of that for myself. Like when I was watching the movie, I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get where you're going for Clive Barker.
And like it reinforces the like phallic nature of the nails, which will rear their head through the rest of the movie. Well, anyway, I'll see myself out.
Yeah, well, and I kind of thought about, other movies we talked about, more specifically, we talked about, when we did Nightmare on Elm Street 2 and all the things that you read and you hear, and, they talk about this, like, unintentionally gay movie, and, we didn't mean it for it to be like that. And I think it was so interesting to then watch something like this that's, like, Clive Barker's first time directing a film. Barker is just like this iconic gay author of horror, and just how intentional everything was in it rather than unintentional. I love that, I guess, I'm thinking trying to put myself in 1987. But like to the untrained eye, you're like, oh yeah, like, these Cenobites and leather and all this stuff, and like just this like BDSM kind of feel that like, oh yeah, it's just like this look, these scary monsters. But then I was like watching it with the lens where we're looking at it and trying to think about stuff. I'm like, you could see the influences. I'm thinking even something like Cruising, something like this, where a lot of these films that kind of investigate or celebrate like gay subculture, especially back then, like incorporated this BDSM look because of the underground clubs, and because also, that's also like a community that feels other, just like I'm sure being a gay man in 1987 in general would feel. So it's like almost this inclusion of that, as well as, to me, I always felt like the Cenobites always kind of had this like androgynous feel anyway. So then, of course, obviously, I'm doing all the like
that's very intentional.
Yeah. But I will say, and not to do with the queerness of this film, but every time I watch this film, I never like to eat. Like if I'm eating something, I just kind of put it down. I believe we had a conversation one time about Wet Freddy, how wet Freddy was.
Yeah.
This whole movie is just wet and moist.
Wet Frank. Yeah, it's very
goopy. Goopy movie.
Yeah, it's goopy. It's like pus, blood, sweat, what I can only call like scum.
Yeah.
Or like, you know what I mean? It's
so like visceral.
Viscous. Yeah, exactly.
I have so many notes about this fleshy man. It's just like, when Julia keeps coming back to this fleshy man, and he's just always so
dripping.
Gross. Yeah, dripping, oozing. It's just like, what's wrong with this guy? Or why would you keep coming back to him?
This watch, I couldn't stop thinking about Possession, because I was like, what similar, bringing like a man to a creature, essentially, and like
true,
for sure.
And I believe when we talked about Possession, also all the scenes when the men are in this room, it's like a dirty room, it's wet, it's moist, it's like the creature's slimy, and I'm just like, this is in capital letters in my notes, I have just like, this is practical effects, like this is why you should do practical effects. If any movie other than like The Thing tells you why, like this is it, because all the practical stuff looks fantastic.
Oh yeah, they're excellent. It's definitely one of the strong points of the movie for me. Like even right off the bat, where I've only seen the movie 2 or 3 times, I was like, oh man, this like flesh, almost like jigsaw puzzle of the face in the beginning when it's all ripped apart and they're putting like the eye back in. I'm like, man, this looks really good, and it's also really messed up. A lot of the effects in this movie are actually kind of shocking in that way, like the hammer smash face moment as well, like early on it's just done really well. Like the first hit like knocks out some of his teeth and his jaw a little bit, and then when he gets hit like for the final time, it's even more messed up on the ground. It's just, there's a lot of attention paid to the gore and the practical effects in this movie, and they actually still work. Like, they're still kind of shocking.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't as worried about Mike. I was more worried at Colton's thoughts. How did you feel about, like, I'm thinking especially towards the end, where we kind of also get, like, the cartoonish, like, effects in it,
where they're sucking the Cenobites like back into the box. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
it's kind of quaint in a way. They're definitely very bad. And I mean, I do think the movie kind of picks up again there at the end. So I think I was kind of like on board with it and just kind of like, oh, this is just kind of silly and hokey, but whatever. I was fine with it. I think it's kind of like when they unveil all the Cenobites, they look really goofy. Like a lot of them, like one of them I can only describe as like Fat Morpheus. He has like a million chins and like the cool glasses. And he's also in like leather
maybe
and
that's
stuff
where they
too.
took the inspiration from.
Yeah, it could be. And then there's also Vagina Neck, you know?
Yeah.
Very much the Vagina Neck. I don't know. They're a bunch of weird people. So when she's going around kind of collecting them all at the end of the movie, it's just kind of, I don't know. It didn't really take me out of it because it's already so weird anyways.
Yeah,
I did
exactly.
make a note that Fat Morpheus doesn't get sucked into the box though. I don't know. I've never seen Hellraiser 2, so I don't know if that's a plot point, but the roof just falls on him, or the floor joists or something give way and fall on him. He doesn't actually get collected again.
I'm never gonna be able to watch this movie without just being like, oh, Fat Morpheus.
Fat Morpheus.
Fat Morpheus. He's great.
Yeah, I do agree. Watching it this time, I can't really, I guess Fat Morpheus is his name. The other guy I know they call the Chatterer.
Yeah,
wait,
I get that. He has
they called him or something, I think. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't mind the Chatterers look. I really do think that like Pinhead and the female Cenobite are the best looking ones. I also wonder if they're the only two that talk, and I do really like kind of like their voices and the effect on their voice. I did see that originally they were all supposed to talk, and then Fat Morpheus he couldn't talk through the suit. And Chatterer couldn't talk with the stuff in his mouth.
Teeth all messed up, yeah.
So they just gave all of the lines to Pinhead.
That's great.
And she kind of groans a lot.
When I was watching Pinhead this time, I felt a real kinship because I noticed that Pinhead's like nipples were bleeding. And it reminded me as a kid when I'd be like that fat kid at the pool and I'd be too afraid to take off my graphic tee. And you go swimming for a couple of hours and then you get out and your nipples are just burning. It reminded me of those times.
It reminds me of an old professor that I used to have who like ran a lot. And
oh, yeah.
People would show me pictures of him just with like fucking, because he didn't like put anything over his nips, and it would just be like
rubbed raw.
bloody nips on the like just blood spots on the front of his. Anyway,
that's good stuff.
That's what I thought of. Yeah,
I was just wondering,
but it's an attention to detail, right?
Yeah, I was wondering like what graphic tee would Pinhead wear to the pool?
I'm thinking Led Zeppelin. I don't know why.
There we go. All right.
No, Black Sabbath.
I like, just for Colton's sake, I kind of hope that he's a Jurassic Park guy. He just big Steven Spielberg fan.
Okay.
Maybe E.T. or Jurassic Park or something.
Nice,
little family friendly, but we'll still rip you apart.
I like that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I feel like we should talk a little bit about Doug Bradley and Pinhead. I mean, I'd say, like, is Pinhead in the Mount Rushmore for, like, horror icon villains? I feel like probably.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think if it's like an aesthetic thing, like Pinhead is certainly iconic. Like, has the silhouette, has the look. I mean, even before I ever saw a horror movie, like, obviously putting aside the in utero stuff, like even before, I remember Pinhead being like in the rental stores, like on the wall, like poster, and he was like scary as shit. Like I remember him like everywhere, that he was a very popular horror icon, like even back then. So yeah, I would say probably on the Mount Rushmore. I mean, that'd be an interesting topic sometime to discuss, like what would it be? What would the four heads on it be? But aesthetically, I could definitely see it having a place.
No, for sure. And like it's not like Freddy with the like constant wisecracks and stuff, but like there are a couple of kind of legendary like turns of phrase in this movie especially,
Yeah.
So it's like the aesthetic and you still have like a catchphrase, Sorry, Rod, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just thinking about that, and yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because I feel like, kind of like I said before, I feel like once you get to like Hellraiser 3, then you kind of start getting into like, oh, let's kind of make him more of this Freddy guy, and the kills are silly and the stuff he says is a little sillier, where, like you said, it's just this like vibe of him, especially in this one, where like the phrases are very like poetic and, you know, this like angelic, and it's just like such a good cadence, a good presence. I mean, Doug Bradley's fucking man. He also, you know, if you love a good Hellraiser like quote and Pinhead talking, he does the amazing talking intro for Her Ghost in the Fog by Cradle of Filth. That's all Doug Bradley as Pinhead.
Nice.
Which, you know, another great thing. This movie always just reminds me of Cradle of Filth. So I am all for that.
Do we know how much screen time Pinhead actually gets in this movie? Because I feel like it must not be a lot. It must be like 5 minutes, right? Like Pinhead's probably not in the movie a whole lot, but obviously there's a presence, but I'm not sure if it's there in screen time or not.
No, you know what? That's a good point, though. It can't be more than like 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, it really feels like, even though everyone kind of gravitated towards him, that it definitely wasn't meant for him to be, like, the face of the film, really.
Yeah, like, obviously using the marketing and the poster and stuff, but that was one of the things I remember when I watched this movie for the first time. I was kind of shocked that Pinhead wasn't, like, your typical slasher killer that was, like, constantly throughout the movie. Like, this movie just winds up being more so about a woman dragging men home for this goopy, fleshy man to eat them. You never consume
apparently
them.
It's about 10 minutes.
Okay, about 10 minutes, and this is like 90 minutes long. So, yeah, a little bit more than I expected, but still, like, not crazy. Like, I'd assume, like, Freddy or Jason or somebody like that probably dominates a little bit more screen time in their movies, even though most of the time when they're on screen, it's purely for murder, where this guy has some more lines. But yeah, it was just something when I was watching it, I'm always surprised by how little screen time Pinhead has in this movie, but still has a presence. And then what the movie's like kind of almost actually about, you know, it's just like, it's just always, I'm just surprised where it's just Julia bringing home dudes to this goopy man.
Frank.
Yeah.
Frank.
Frank with the dirtiest fingernails around.
Some dirty pictures,
but like,
too.
Yeah.
It's definitely some of those in that little box, the little tin in his trunk. By the way, just, you know, side note, I wanted that trunk. Every time they like go in that room and see the trunk open and all the stuff in there, I'm like, I need that. I want to write Clive Barker and be like, do you still have that? Like, I want that particular one. I want one like it, but I kind of want that particular one. Like, give it to me.
Those sort of like, I don't know, stashes where people used to keep their porn and whatnot is definitely from a bygone era. It's like, you're probably not going to walk into your friend's house and like go in a little room and see like, you know, a bunch of posters plastered all over the wall or pages from their magazines and shit anymore.
Yeah.
So just when I was seeing that, I was thinking like, man, if I went over to like a friend's house and saw like this little trunk, I'd be like, they are such a degenerate. Like, what is going on now? It's just, it doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, it's just wild.
Yeah, because it's like all on your phone.
Yeah, phone or computer or something,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Like, you know, you'll have your folder or something if you're one of those guys, but I mean, you're not going to have a trunk, you know? That'd be insane.
No, it's true. It's true.
So is there, I'm going to assume there's no debate on this podcast that we know Mike probably has like some 10-minute rant about why Julia is the best character in this film.
I mean, her and Kirsty, yes, of course.
Yeah.
I can't stand Julia in this, if I'm being honest. She kind of just annoys me.
You need to see number 2, because she takes over in number 2.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I do need to see number 2.
And
I've
it's
heard
also pretty
people
good.
like number 2, right? It's not like a bad sequel. Yeah.
No. It's generally considered like one of the better 80s horror sequels for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, a lot of people I talk to actually tend to like number 2 more than they do this one, which I could see, because number 2 is a lot more like Cenobites and it, like...
Well, because it's set up. The whole like kind of world is already built and set up for you.
So are you telling me, Mike, that you're going to advocate for Kirsty, who I feel most people look at as like one of the worst final girls?
I literally will fucking...
Great. Yeah.
I will fight anybody who says that.
Yeah, I think
like
she's
literally.
You know
right
who
now,
didn't think she was great? Clive Barker or anyone else that was in this movie.
Oh, really?
Well,
she's like it's like a notorious story that like essentially at the end of this they just like were not happy with her, and they didn't think
maybe
she
not
was
the
great.
performance. Maybe not the performance of Kirsty, but I do like her in the movie. I mean, like, once again, like, I kind of, with this movie, I get kind of tired of this middle-aged old romance of, like, woman who's not happy in her marriage dragging home men for goopy Frank to consume. I get tired of that. Like, it happens and it starts repeating over and over again. And I understand there's like a depth to that, and they're trying to like flesh out the characters and their relationships a little bit more.
Literally.
But Kirsty to me is just like, it winds up being like, oh, she's just something different. She's just outside of this main, you know, focus of the movie. She adds a different flavor to the movie. And also,
you get to see the pet store. Yeah,
exactly. And there's also that scene where she winds up like fondling Frank's guts. Like, you know, she's like accidentally pulling out his entrails, and then she like knees him in the crotch, where I think he's been shown up to that point to like basically have nothing there, but he still falls over and, you know, acts like as if he has stuff there. I don't know. I enjoyed Kirsty when she was in this movie. She wasn't like the woman from Leprechaun 3, but she was all right. She was good.
No. Who is, though? Like, literally nobody.
Exactly. Nobody.
No.
It's not like the woman like Leprechaun 3. There's no ripped magazine pages in Colton's trunk of her or anything.
I still think about her sometimes, and I'm like, yeah. You're like, your Reddit deep dive of...
I guess I don't
nude celebs / Reddit or whatever. Yeah.
I didn't hate Kirsty, but I guess my real issue was that you can really tell, or at least to me, that the casting and the whole vibe was definitely influenced by Nancy and Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, I just found, like, her whole aura was, like, the exact same character.
Yeah, it was definitely a character that I felt like I had seen before. And then also some of the comments towards her in the movie were, like, a little inappropriate. Like, the one where she was like,
lie down.
I think I've had enough. If I drink more, I'm not going to be able to stand up. Then lie down. You know? I was like, what on earth? And
in front of her father.
I know. And he was like, yeah, like 2 thumbs up, like all for it.
He's like, hang on now, let me pour you up another drink there.
Yeah, it was so messed up.
Yeah, super creepy. Like, why would you say that in front of her dad? Which I'm assuming this is, like, the first time that guy met her dad.
Yeah, I'd assume so. Yeah.
But obviously the dad doesn't have an issue, because we also have, like, the movers that are just, like, ogling her and...
Yeah.
Which is
she has to, like, rub past them, and, you know, the guy's clearly pretty excited by that. Yeah, it's just...
Oh, yeah.
It's very strange.
But, I mean, the dad's just a loser, man. Like, the dad just giving the movers, like, a full case of beer, because essentially they just tell him to, and he's like, oh, here you go. Yeah.
He had, like, big Ned Flanders, or no, not even Ned Flanders energy. What's his face? Millhouse's father. Like... Just saying.
There's also, how did you guys feel about creepy uncle niece vibes going on in this? Yeah. Frank just doesn't give a fuck who he's molesting, apparently.
Come to daddy.
Yeah, come to daddy. Ugh, gross, so cringy.
Yeah.
Which I always wondered that, you know, I kind of, like, I get it just makes him a sleaze bag and for you to not like him anymore. But then I always wonder, like, is that supposed to be a hint that maybe, like, when he was also alive, he was, like, a total sleaze to her? And that this was, like, a history thing going on?
But don't they say in the beginning that the house has been, like, abandoned for, like, 10 years or something? Do they say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, how old would Nancy be if you subtract 10 years when Frank was around, right? Then we're getting like really problematic. It's no longer sexual, just deviant anymore. It's like, oof, you're in different territory altogether.
The one thing I
completely derailed Rowan's theory outside of the movie.
It's all right.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to say that I actually laughed really hard at this viewing was when they're like kind of first coming to the house. And Julia's, like, looking around. Obviously, Julia does not want to be here. And they're, like, arguing. And I'm like, what disrespect that she just throws her cigarette on the floor and stamps it out on the floor in the middle of the house. I was just like, yet again, like, this is, I don't know, what's that the internet word all the kids use? This husband is like a simp. That's what it is. He's just like... the worst kind. The worst
I think
kind.
I just aged by 5 years hearing Rowan try and figure out
Yeah,
the
I
word
know,
simp.
right? I'm hip with the guys. I'm hip.
What I thought was interesting in the movie was how much of a cuck that Frank was, because there was multiple scenes where that like heartbeat starts happening right when Julia's like getting it on with other dudes, and it was like in the beginning it's like when the guy like takes down his pants and he has the tighty whities on, and then you hear like the heartbeat and Frank's kind of watching from the corner, and it happens again like 10 minutes later with her husband as well when Frank is just standing in the closet watching. I thought that was an interesting detail. You know, we got cuckold representation in this movie.
I think there's also like, you know, a little bit of like muddying the waters with some like bisexual subtle vibes, you know. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, 100%.
Yeah.
It's just funnier if he's a cuck, I guess. But
yeah. No, absolutely. Representation, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of where my mind went with it too, is I thought it was kind of this interesting thing, 'cause, you know, like I said, I'm thinking about the 80s. I'm thinking about, you know, Hollywood specifically, like, you know, and you know, a lot of actors, you know, directors, writers, like, have to kind of not necessarily be out as gay actors, all this kind of stuff. So I thought it was interesting that Barker would work this plot where Julia is like getting men and bringing them back for Frank, so Frank doesn't have to do it publicly, which obviously he can't, but I was thinking, the deeper metaphor here where... Like
she's a beard.
Yeah, like you said, Mike, and it's just... This is the brilliance of Clive Barker to me. It's just like all of these like subtexts going in, which I'm hoping Mike's gonna do a breakdown, because I know when I was watching it, I was texting Willow, and Willow's like, you guys better talk about AIDS.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, that feeds into the whole AIDS of the metaphor of the movie anyway, you know? Because it's like this closet case, like, hooking up in the attic, stranger danger, you know? Like...
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely get it. Well, in, you know, these men being promiscuous, and then it kills them. It literally just kills them.
Well, I mean, there's such a, like, close tie between, like, sex and, like, blood and death, right?
Yeah.
Like, literally, it's, like, just inextricably intertwined. Pretty much from the get-go, like as soon as they move into that house.
Yeah, so I will say, like, it's definitely an angle I never had looked at the movie at before, but was very cognizant of it just because I had talked to Willow, and I was like, hey, I'm about to sit down and watch this, and Willow was like, hey, look for this. Like, just think about this while you watch
I actually never thought about that when I was watching it, but when you just mentioned it instantly, I was like, oh, I can see that reading. Right away.
And it's once
again, as someone who wasn't paying super close attention at times to the movie, but I can definitely see that reading from it.
Yeah, no, it's very like, and it's an extremely horny movie, and you know, it's like literally you go out and meet a stranger in the bar to fuck, and you're dead. Like it's literally the hammer in the head, like. If you've watched it a couple times and like, you know, not seen it, and then all of a sudden you see it, it's like literally like getting struck in the face. You're like, how did I miss this? I feel like the first time I watched it and then kind of like went, oh my god, and like something clicked in me when I was kind of like putting it in context, like historically. Yeah, I was like, holy shit, this movie just like got so much better. And I always loved that movie, but you know, I was like, if it was a straight filmmaker, you know, that like kind of layer would still sort of be there, but you know, I feel like it was definitely much more deliberate. And like you said, especially in the 80s, the like super conservative 80s in a lot of ways, you know, you weren't talking about that shit like openly unless it was some TV movie of the week. You know, in which you know, definitely get ratings. But anyway, yeah, no, I remember my friend and I watched it. We decided to like, you know, get together and have a few drinks and like smoke a bit and watch a few horror movies, and we decided to watch this one and number 2. Side note, we did not think that element was really there as very much a number 2, but yeah, we were like, it's funny because when you're talking about it to somebody else, like she'd only seen it like twice and never thought about that, and like she spent the whole movie then, like once we kind of like brought that element up, like unpacking it, and she's like, I can't not see that. Like the movie is like horny danger, like, you know. and we did this whole like thread about it. It was wonderful. But yeah, that's like literally and like now I see Pinhead and like kind of think of, you know, AIDS devastation. And again, I just love the phrase horny paranoia. That's where I'm going with it.
Yeah, I can 100% see where Mike is saying, like, once you can kind of view the movie through that lens. Like, if I was watching it, like, if Willow texted me and told me to look for that during the movie, like, I can 100% see how that could be put onto it, for sure.
Yeah, I did want to, I guess, you know, to go to something a little lighter than that.
That's what I was going to say. Here, let me take it. Did I miss something? What is with homeless pirate in this movie? Who turns into a bone dragon right at the end and flies away? Like, is that supposed to be like Satan or something, or what is this?
I just like it because literally my note on it is, what's the deal with homeless guy?
Yeah, it was something that I felt like I missed in the movie that I was like, oh, okay, all right, he's a bone dragon now, all right. Great.
I do love the transformation. I did like the look of the bone dragon. I didn't really see the second one. I'm not as familiar with. I usually when I go back and rewatch this is the one I rewatch. So I can't really remember if the bone dragon is in it anymore. But I mean, there's obviously a lot of, especially now, I'm sure this bone dragon showing up and stuff. Because, I mean, Hellraiser has had about 8 million different comic series that Clive Barker has written and really kind of expanded. I think, like, some of the more recent stuff, maybe the last 10 years, where, you know, like, even Pinhead has been turned into almost like a protagonist and, like, kind of helped Kirsty in the comics, like, you know, solve hell and escape the devil and all this kind of stuff. But I don't know. I thought it was just kind of a vibe, maybe. It was just like, I don't know, he's ominous. And that also somehow gets the box out of there and to wherever they need it to go.
Yeah, from what I'm seeing on the, I don't know, I guess, what is this? The Hellraiser wiki. Apparently it's known as Derelict, the Puzzle Guardian. And they're saying that basically that Puzzle Guardian kind of surfaces in a bunch of the Hellraiser movies, but I don't think always in the form of that bone dragon.
Oh, that's a shame.
They're kind of like in this homeless, kind of vagrant, bearded guy aesthetic a lot of times by the looks of it.
I feel like they completely took inspiration from that in Game of Thrones. I'm just saying. He walks into the fire, dragons, hello, like it's right there. Platter.
You're saying Khaleesi, Daenerys, directly inspired
absolutely.
by the bone dragon from the end of Hellraiser. Yep.
You know what? I'm putting it on the record.
George R. R. Martin's definitely a horny old man. He probably loves Hellraiser. 100%.
Oh, 100%.
So,
Yep.
Yeah, I could see that. That wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. Colton, you briefly brought up the beginning, the face stuff, the body parts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's kind of funny because how many times I've seen this movie, I literally never remember it at all. Usually I just totally forget a lot of stuff that goes on in it.
Is it because you fall asleep halfway through, or?
No, not at all. I don't know what it is. You would think I would remember it, but I was just going to say, I had in my notes, when I first started it, I forgot this pretty much gets, right into it. Gore right away. Obviously, my first note is the fantastic Hellraiser theme song, which is iconic now, and the music's just great in this.
Great score in this one.
Yeah, it's got that gothic feel, that 80s feel. It's just everything that this needed to have in order for it to really, really work.
It's funny because I have this... I think it was officially released. Yeah, it was definitely officially released, but I don't know if it's you can get it kind of officially now streaming or anything, but they got this really cool, I don't even know what you'd call it, it's kind of gothy industrial sort of music. It's this band called Coil.
Yeah,
they're really, really, really good. They have a really voluminous discography too. It's actually really daunting, and not all of it's great, but a lot of it is really, really great. But yeah, so there's the official unused score that they put out, and it's really good. And I actually I wanted to put it on while I was watching the movie, and I totally forgot, just to see how it I would love for somebody to do a cut of this like online somewhere and like just put up on Pirate Bay that like exchanges the music somehow. You know how they do the ones like where you put your Pink Floyd over Wizard of Oz.
Well, and they've done that. They did that for I think they did that for a release of Candyman, didn't they? Where I think Philip Glass like redid the music for it, and you could watch it with like this alternate. But I was gonna say, yeah, that would make sense. They would release that because I did read that Clive Barker originally wanted Coil to do the music, and basically like New Order, the company that put the movie out, said no, and they were like, no, we want like a traditional film composer, which I was just looking, and
Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Christopher Young, who did Nightmare on Elm Street 2, did the music for that. So that was kind of super interesting. And I guess, another thing, if you're going to talk about the legacy of this movie, is a notoriously censored movie. This was originally rated X. It was far more visceral than even we have seen. So obviously Clive Barker said he had to make a ton of cuts. There was a lot of extra violence, extra sex. There was just stuff that 1987 was not ready for. So
no.
He had to cut it. Obviously, being, a British filmmaker, like the first people that X'd it was the UK. So that was kind of his main concern. And I was going to bring it up, and I saw, I think in our section where people give us their opinions, I think I saw someone also brought it up. But this movie was banned in Ontario.
Oh, really?
Nice. Yes.
Wow.
I don't have a ton of details on it, but basically just, I think in the 80s it was banned for its violence and display of like kink and gay themes, I guess, is probably what they would have called it. I think it was a little too queer for Ontario in 1987. So I don't know if that ban ever was officially lifted. Hopefully anyone that is from there that maybe is listening and watch this movie first, hopefully you're not listening from a prison cell. So hopefully you can watch it in the comfort of your home.
I went to jail for watching Hellraiser. You'd have to put that on a t-shirt. Like
100%.
The Ford administration would definitely uphold that ban. Fucking assholes.
So I wanna dig a little bit in Mike's mind, because we did have a request that we know you didn't read it recently, but no. I do know people were curious and wanted to hear it. It would have to be you because neither of us have read it. Just your thoughts on the book and kind of how it compares to the movie. Like if, you remember the book being better than the movie or vice versa, or just any kind of differences.
No, well, I've been meaning, I picked up a new copy of it because I had a really cool old one that I lost in one of my moves. I picked it up again last year and I've been meaning to reread it. I was going to try to reread it before this episode and I just didn't have a chance. But it's funny because if it wasn't the same summer that I saw this at one of my cousin's house, it was the next one. And again, I was on vacation and we stopped in this city for a couple days to visit my aunt, and there was a used bookstore, so of course I went in there and I found this book and read it in the car on the drive back over the highway. So it might have even been the same summer, maybe a couple weeks later. And I devoured it. I picture a 13-year-old sitting in the back of their parents' car reading fucking Clive Barker, and it was so good that it got me. That was my gateway. That was my gateway drug right there to Clive Barker, and he instantly became somebody that I was obsessed with, definitely for a few years in my teens, and I still love. I have most of his books. But I don't want to, say anything too definitively because I haven't read it recently enough. But when I was reading it the first time, I remember, because it's only a short novel. It's like maybe 130 pages or so, maybe 140. It literally is like something you can read in one sitting if you want.
Yeah, it's considered a novella.
A novella, yeah. It's like
Okay.
a long short story essentially.
Yeah.
But it definitely takes off in a few different directions, but like mostly. And I could be wrong because I need to reread it again. I remember because I had seen the movie while staying at my cousin's house. First, I remember reading the book and going, this is insanely close in a lot of ways. Like a lot of the beats and the exact plot points are like right there, which I thought was interesting. But it makes sense because it's Clive Barker adapting his own work. And it's fairly straightforward, right? Because it's just such a short book. Like, he has books that are like, 600-700 pages long, and they're epic, and there's no way you'd ever be able to adapt it. But like, this is something that, like I said, essentially it was a really long short story. So I think it mostly works. Like, I feel like, again, tell me I'm wrong, but I felt like it was just one of the most successful, I'm calling it straight up adaptations. Just because it hews so closely to, like, the plot points. There's some differences. I remember, like, obviously some things happen in the novella that are not.
I feel
really
like I had
translatable.
read or I'd heard that, like, the novella was a little more sexually explicit.
It's definitely. I remember that because I remember sitting in the backseat of the car going, "Ooh, this is even hornier than I remembered the movie being." And probably more than I was at the time, which, when you're in puberty is 24/7. But yeah, I'm perfectly willing to reread it again and maybe for a minute in the next episode just talk
Report
about
back.
it a little bit more. Yeah,
I might
I'll
have to
report
read it.
back.
I've got it here. I've just never read it.
It was excellent. Like I said, like, it was good enough that I picked that up and read it in one sitting and then said, I'm obsessed with this man. And every time I could get my hands on something that he wrote or was involved with, I did. So take that however you will.
I was going to say, I mean, probably to me, the biggest change from what I know of the book is, like, the book, Pinhead isn't Pinhead in the book. It's just the Hell Priest.
Yeah.
Which was kind of the big thing. I know the hype when they did the remake, or I wouldn't even call it a remake. It was just a new Hellraiser. Was that last year? Jeez.
Yeah.
Time flying by.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I remember that being a big hype up because people are like, oh, they're calling it like the Hell Priestess, and it's how this is like more like the book than just calling it Pinhead, because Pinhead actually was just a name that the production came up with because he had pins in his head, so they would just be like, oh, we got to do the makeup effects now for Pinhead. And it just kind of stuck.
It wasn't like some rocket science,
Yeah, because I think it's 2 or 3 that they actually then use Pinhead in the actual movies.
Yeah, I heard that was how they came up with Fat Morpheus as well. They just had to do the makeup for Fat Morpheus.
I'm just waiting for tonight before Colin goes to bed, him going on Wikipedia, getting his edit on.
Oh, yeah.
And crew commonly called Fat Morpheus, Fat Morpheus.
Yes, 100%.
Edited on 6/18/2023. I wanted to say one little thing. It was prompted by actually a film writer that I know on Twitter, and he posted something yesterday that I saw a couple hours before I rewatched the movie, and I thought it was very pertinent to this movie and movies in general. And he said, people aren't sweaty in movies anymore. I remember why. It's because he posted a picture. Someone posted pictures of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake from back in the day with Jessica Biel, and they were all just like glistening with sweat. And he was like, "People aren't sweaty in movies anymore." And I was like, "It's true." And then I watched this and was like, the first 20 minutes is just like sweat and pus and just fluid and moistness everywhere. Moisture, yeah. So I just thought that was funny because Frank is very sweaty before he is a blob of skinless flesh.
Weirdly enough, I remember when I saw Moonlight at TIFF, Barry Jenkins talked about how many like liters of, I think it was like baby oil or something they went through to make their characters look sweaty on screen as well, because he was kind of remarking how in film there's nobody sweaty anymore either.
Yeah,
so if you go
it's so
if you go back and
weird.
watch Moonlight, just look for all the sweat because there's a lot of baby oil on display there.
Nice.
Well, I guess if that's everything, let's get into rating this. We'll land the plane. So if you are new to the program, our rating system is nay, okay, yay, or slay. Mike, we're going to let you have first stab at this one.
I'm going to give it a slay. I love it. Personally, it's important to me because it was one of the like first movies that I kind of watched on my own and got like really scared by, but then it prompted me to like read more Clive Barker and stuff, who also then became, you know, this like chain of things that became important to me because I watched this movie essentially. And I just love it. And I love Kirsty. I love Ashley Lawrence, who plays her. So shut the fuck up, bro. I don't want to hear any sass about her. And I love Julia. I think it's such a great movie. And it's one of those that like, I just appreciate it as like the iconic 80s horror movie, the genesis of, another franchise that everybody loves. But also, I do rewatch it like every couple years, usually with other people, and kind of like see something different in it. And I really enjoy that. And, you know, there's not a lot of movies that I rewatch and kind of like have a different reading on, especially when it's, you know, sort of like a franchise horror. So yeah, to me, it's a slay. I love it. I buy it, you know, on whatever formats I can get my hand on. I will buy, you know, a limited edition 4K of it, whatever, like hands down, sight unseen. So yeah, total slay. What about you, Colton?
Oh no.
It's fine. It's fine.
I came into this movie like basically, or this episode, thinking I was going to give it a nay, just because of how bored I was for a lot of this movie. But through talking about it, I think there actually are more elements to it that I do appreciate. Like I do appreciate a lot of the practical effects and the gore. I do think like Pinhead and a lot of the Cenobite designs, even though I made fun of Fat Morpheus, they are like iconic characters, specifically Pinhead. And the score is great as well. But for me, it's just I get really bored focusing on these two kind of middle-aged characters that for a lot of the movie, it kind of just repeats the same beats of going luring someone back to the house to him being consumed, and then, you know, kind of basically being like, I need more, and it just keeps happening. I do like the moments where it breaks away from that form and kind of goes with Kirsty, even though I will admit the time when she goes to the hospital, it feels like just this big long sequence in a movie that it's just kind of like it feels out of place in a way. So I don't know, it's a bit more of a mixed bag for me. I think through talking it all over, I think I'm going to give it an okay, but it's not something that I feel much of, like, you know, I don't feel the pull to come back to it. And honestly, It's one of those movies that I was shocked when I saw that it was only like 89 minutes, because in my head, this is like a 2-hour movie, 100%. So that's kind of wild. It's just, for me, the pacing feels very slow for this one, but I do think there is a lot of elements that I can appreciate, and I can understand, especially if you watched it like in your formative years, that I can understand how you'd like it. It's just, for me, it was kind of like I was always going in with all the hype whenever I saw it, right? So it's something that I think I liked it a little bit more this time than the last time I saw it, so maybe it'll grow on me. But yeah, it's an okay from me.
Fair.
What about you, Rowan?
I'll be so excited next episode when Jill comes back, because I might have got a text message last night that was like, fucking Colton only gave this like a 2-star on Letterboxd.
I did, yep.
And she was like, I'm gonna kill him.
I think I'm gonna bump it up to a 2.5 this time, though. So
there you go. There you go.
It's getting the 0.5-star bump just for Fat Morpheus.
Well, I said if you're looking for Jill's opinion, maybe I said maybe next episode we'll give her like a 2-minute clearway, maybe a 90-second clearway if Colton's nice enough, and we'll let her get her thoughts out about it, because I know she was this is a big one for her.
She should have just wrote in her review, and then I could have read it aloud on the air again, 100% the way she wrote it.
So this is just hurting my heart right now. This is gonna be something. So I came in fully expecting to slay this. I've said it's on my list. It's still on my list for my top 10 favorite horror movies. Kind of like you said, Colton, I think it's the time I watched it. Like in my formative years, like it's just this is a go-to to me, but I don't think I can give it higher than a yay. I will give it a yay.
I gotta push back on that, because you've slayed more than 10 movies on this fucking podcast that we're on. How on earth can you say it's in your top 10 horror movies and give it a yay? I mean, that's fine. That's just wild, though.
You know what? I'm going to resort back to my Demon Knight conversation where, like, I've seen Demon Knight so many times. I love that movie to death, but it's not more than a yay. Like, I know it's not in my heart. And I'm trying to be critical.
You're listening to your heart now, are you?
Yeah, okay. Well, kind of. I'll still watch this all the time. There's so many things I do love about it, but similar to you, Colton, I felt this movie was longer than it was, especially on this watch. And also, you know, I brought it up in the review. I think there's something to me always forgetting things that happen in this movie, and I guess I just am not that impressed with them, because I'm like, oh, I don't ever remember this, even though I've seen this 8 million times. I think the iconic shots and the iconic scenes are hands down like some of the best things in horror in general, period. And I appreciate this for opening me up to Clive Barker and you know, his writing, his other movies. But I've got to be fair, especially if we ever do more of his movies. Like, I do have Clive Barker movies that I like more than this one.
Lord of Illusions, Nightbreed.
Like, yeah, I'm looking at you, Nightbreed.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just, you know, these are all movies I grew up with, and as much as I love Hellraiser, it probably was kind of almost the least watched of my childhood. And yeah, there's just like little faults in it that I think just keep it from being a slay. It's a strong yay. Like, it's a banger, but yeah, I can't give it any more than a yay. I know what Colton's gonna say. Listen, I gave it a 5-star on Letterboxd. I will continue.
Oh my god!
I will continue to give it
out of control.
I will give it a 5-star on Letterboxd because it's in that territory. It's in that like 4.5, 5-star. I had to make sure just for Colton that I updated my Letterboxd bio, so it says that all my ratings are done by emotion and not logic. So
thanks, perfect.
So now I feel
You're
like
nothing
justified.
if not illogical and inconsistent.
Exactly.
And I'm saying that as somebody who is the same way.
Exactly. So I'm going to give it a very strong yay. So all over the place.
I'm just shaking my head. I mean, I don't feel passionately about the movie, but it's just crazy to give a movie a 5-star. I say it's in your top 10 favorite horror movies of all time and then give it a yay. But you do you, Rowan.
I'm an ever-evolving person. I'm a changing beast. So yeah. So
you're like the homeless pirate.
That's
right.
right.
Oh my
the
god! You just walked
walked
into the fire. Yeah.
I just eat crickets and turn into bone dragons. So we told you what we thought of it. We won't ask what you thought about Hellraiser from 1987. So we had a couple responses. We had a response come in on. We had more come in on Instagram, but I'm not going to read them because it was also people that left voicemails. So we did have Brad write in. Our good friend Brad, and
what's his emoji rating?
No emoji rating. I was upset. Very disappointed. God. He just wrote classic. That's all he wrote. Okay. So I mean that's acceptable. On Twitter we had Seen Unseen Cast. They wrote instant slay for being banned in Ontario.
Nice.
Yes.
So yeah, we love us a good movie banning, a good book banning, the hype a movie up. And then we had Anna Partita. I didn't forget you this time. You wrote slay all day in all capitals on Facebook. And then we had Charlene write in on Facebook and say, I love the book. Does that count? I have not seen this movie yet.
That's wild. To read the book and not see the movie?
Yeah.
Colton can't imagine it. Colton's like, what? People read and
You see, I got my English degree and then I never read again. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
what we all do.
University just ruining your will to read.
Basically.
So yeah, and I think we're going to attach the hooks to our bodies and let it pull us on over to the horrific hotline where we've got voicemails this week.
We do. And I'll just do it in the order we have it here. At first, I think we have a very special voicemail from Rhonda Fraser, I think. Right, Rowan?
She strikes again. Mom striked again. I did promise last episode. I said we were doing Hellraiser. She's like, well, I got to watch it, so we're ready.
Hey, it's Rowan's mom giving my thoughts on Hellraiser 1987. So my first thought is, yeah, creepy uncles. This makes it pretty clear why you want to follow that instinct. I want to know why, if you have no skin or you're hanging out with people who have no skin, you're wearing white. I don't really understand that
Asking
part.
the questions that should be asked.
The Rubik's Cube as a toy, dangerous. You know, we all knew that. You were always pinching your fingers in it, that sort of thing. Well, this took that to a whole new level. And I'm also wondering if anybody else got the Rob Zombie vibe from the fellow who played the cricket-eating
homeless pirate
person in the shop where she worked and turned into the thing that grabbed the Rubik's Cube and flew away at the end. I had myself convinced that maybe it was a young Rob Zombie. Anyway, might just be me. So yeah, from a nostalgia point of view, I give this a yay.
Oh.
From an actual experience watching it again many years later, Rowan, I won't give away your age, but everyone can do the math. I give it an okay. I had forgotten how little of the Cenobites we actually got to see. And I had also forgotten that my favorite Cenobite is the one that looks like it's wearing a math set in its face. So I think it's because I'm always just focused on the lead one, which is who we always see on the posters. So that's my review, and I'll be listening to hear what everybody else thought.
Oh my god, I was hoping that she was going to say her favorite Cenobite was Fat Morpheus.
Fat Morpheus.
Giving it an okay, just like me, and then saying that was Fat Morpheus, I would have been so hyped.
So then, I can't believe it. Only an okay from my mother. Here I am, I'm always bragging. I'm like, oh, my mom loves this movie. Like...
I like even from a nostalgia. I like even with nostalgia factored in, it was still only a yay. So yeah, I wouldn't say your mom loves this movie. She maybe she likes some of the later ones though, judging by what she said.
Yeah, really.
All right, and I think our next voicemail is from our tried and true. I think he got it in on time this time. I don't know how Rowan edited that last time, or if it was obvious or not.
It was 100% obvious.
Okay, perfect.
I just put it in and then kept all of us making fun of him and then just put it in.
Poor Nicholas. Well, here's Nicholas. This is what he has to say about it.
Okay, so Hellraiser is advertised with the Cenobites and Pinhead, and they show up for about 5 minutes over the entire movie. There is a weird puppet controlled machine thing where you can see the puppeteer.
Come on, that's the best part.
Some side plots with a insect eating guy that don't really lead anywhere, and still it is really entertaining and really cool movie that I really enjoy watching. The splatter scenes towards the end are fantastic, and I'm impressed every time I watch the movie. I'm impressed by the let's say resurrection scene or rebuilding scene of Frank when he comes from under the floorboards.
Oh, we never even talked
about
that.
And overall, Frank is a great and really disgusting antagonist over the movie, and his kind of toxic relationship with the equally evil stepmom is, well, it's the main focus of the story, and I do enjoy that part as well. Though I do have to say I wish for a bit more of the Cenobites, but we do get that in the second and third movie. I haven't seen any other than those three, by the way. Overall, this movie is definitely somewhere between a yay and a slay for me. I think depending a bit on my own mood, if I'm in for like an disgusting, enjoyable horror movie or not. And I guess favorite kill, I do have to say the end when Frank is ripped apart by the chains, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I say, Nicholas? Jesus wept.
Yeah.
So.
I thought he was going to come out and actually be like, yeah, there's all these things about this movie that make it not a good movie, so that's why it's not a good movie. But he went the other way where he's just like, yo, I just listed all these things that Colton probably complained about, but I'm still giving it a strong yay.
And
I love it.
I take it Nicholas is also read the book, because he was the one specifically that said he in his email that he was hoping that someone was going to talk about the book. So, and you're right, Colton. I can't believe we didn't talk about the about Frank coming up out of the floorboards.
One of the greatest scenes in the movie, right? Like,
yeah,
it's super impressive, and it's super long too. Like they really linger on kind of like that recombination, like all of the limbs and ligaments all coming together to make a form. Even though they do stop about halfway, I think he only gets like halfway out of the floorboards, right? They stop at like the waist. Because I guess then it's like the effect is too hard to achieve from then on out. But
it's
it's really
impressive.
Get the
idea, right?
Yeah, like what they have there is really well done. And then I think our last voicemail is from Steven Sacrotype on Instagram.
Come to daddy. Hey guys, it's Steven, your resident horror film noob. Really enjoyed the movie. This was my second time watching it, and I think it's my favorite story involving a fuckboy, murderous, and incel love triangle, but it's really hard to choose because there's so many to choose from. The film, I give it a yay. It's pretty good. It's obviously classic now. I do wish there was more Cenobites in it, considering Pinhead was on the cover of the movie. I remember it in the movie store scaring me. So when I first watched it 6 months ago, I was really surprised how little they showed up, but the scenes that they're in are great. Few cliff notes. Jesus Wept is the biggest BDSM sub flex ever. Wow. Frank is the most beta daddy ever. I don't think there was one time where he went, "Come to daddy," and it was impressive in the least. And his fingernails were dirty as fuck in the beginning of the movie, and I don't know why. Yeah, so it's a yay.
It seems like there's a common theme of just everyone being disappointed that there's not enough Cenobites in this movie.
Yeah.
Also, like, what was that? Incel, fuckboy, love triangle?
That was literally the most perfect description of this movie, and I'm going to use it from now on. Just saying.
Yeah, very awkward sibling rivalry in it.
For sure. So if you want to leave a voicemail like Steven, Nicholas, and Rowan's mom, you can do so at 1902-418-8620. I honestly don't even know if that number works anymore. We keep saying it, but nobody uses it. Yeah. Nobody uses it anyway. So you can send it to us on Instagram at It's Lays Podcast, or you can send us an email at itslayspodcast@gmail.com. And if you made it this far in the show and you're somehow not following us on our socials already, you can find us there at It's Lays Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Slasher, Letterboxd. Basically, anywhere where there's a social media, we're there at It's Lays Podcast. And if you want to support the show like our horror hounds Holly, Nicholas, Patrick, Mark, Steven, Joy, and Carvey, gain access to the Patreon exclusive show Stream Screams, hosted by Jill, and get episodes of this here main show 48 hours early, be sure to head on over to patreon.com/itslays podcast and choose whatever tier works best for you. Now, Rowan, go ahead and plug the playlist.
So if you are into spooky music from horror movies that we review, or iconic horror movies, or just horror movies we all love, go to the It Slays Podcast horrific playlist on Spotify. If you have any problems finding it, you can go to any of the social media that Colton just mentioned and click on the Linktree link, and it will take you right there. We upload music pretty regularly. I'm actually doing a big update tonight, and I'm going to make sure some Hellraiser gets on there. There's some other stuff that we've done that we'll put some music up to as well. But yeah, we update it regularly. Go listen to it. Get your spooky music on. I was listening to the playlist yesterday while I was driving around in the car, so it's something I actually use also. So be like me, be cool, and listen to it. So I think all that's left is to announce our next episode. So we're coming out of Pride Month, and Mike had the pick for our next episode. So Mike, Why don't you let the people know what they should be watching?
Okay, I just need to say, first of all, that this is kind of a vaguely Pride pick. It's a, like, gay cult classic. But a lot of straight people like it too. It is the amazing Hello Mary Lou Prom Night 2.
I somehow Pride Month, the two straight guys they landed on our picks in Pride Month. I'm not really.
That's great when that happens, right?
Yeah, we're but Mike keeps us in line by making sure that we just continue out of Pride Month and
keep the Camp Classic.
Camp Classic going. So, yeah, get your eyeballs on that. We'll be back. I believe Jill will be back also. So, I know we're all thinking right now, hopefully she's having a terrible time at her concert tonight.
Mm-hmm.
She's learning lots of math. How dare you?
Yeah, a lot of feedback in the amps. Hopefully, it's just a terrible time. It definitely wasn't as good as this time. So I guess she's not on the in-joke about Fat Morpheus. So
when she comes back, because we all know she doesn't actually listen to the podcast when she's not on it, make sure that we talk about Fat Morpheus next episode and just see if she knows what we're talking about.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that. But as always, thank you for all the support. We will be back in 2 weeks with a new episode, and there's a bunch of stream screams coming out, so make sure to go listen to everything. As always, I am your humble host, Rowan.
Bye, it's Mike.
And I'm Colton. Fat Morpheus forever.
See you later.
We're going to expand our weekly video segment to take you into the back shelves of your local video store, back where it says horror videos, and where kids are devouring some awful films that we call the video nasties.
Are you freebasing? Inquiring minds want to know.
I have to break free from this culture of mechanical reproductions and the thick incrustations dying on the surface.
What the prime time gets.
On with the new Fletch. The pain, I can assure you, will be exquisite. As for our deaths, come with me and be immortal.
We have such sights to show you.
Gotta return some videotape.